Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Now, can you cast your mind back? I'm sure we all can. 5 years ago, there was a so-called pandemic, wasn't it? We were all locked up in our bedrooms and houses and maybe about to parade around the garden, but that was about it. Because we were told something rather nasty was in the air. And there were a lot of people who knew that that perhaps wasn't the case. Some people knew much more than others. And in fact, in 2021, we were all told that by the magic of science, there was a magic cure and that we all needed to take it. Well, my guest today knew that this was a complete pack of lies, knew that the remedy was not really a remedy at all, and was desperate to get the message out. You may remember I've been involved myself with the Better Way conference, which resulted in the bailiffs knocking on my door because I'd driven into a ULEZ zone, but let's not worry too much about that. Tess Lawrie, Dr. Tess Lawrie, I should say, organised that, and she set up the World Council for Health, and we've been hearing from them over the last few years. Well, she has written a book about that story, about the involvement and trying to get heard, and what it's all about. And she joins me now. Hello, Tess.
Hello, Richard, and thanks very much for that lovely introduction. I just wanted to say that there was so many people that contributed to establishing World Council for Health and the Better Way movement, that's kind of what the book is about. It certainly wasn't just me. I helped to co-found or initiate it, but ultimately it was sort of a snowball effect from the start of 2021 to the end of 2021 that we really managed to galvanize and form the World Council for Health. So yeah, the book is definitely about that, but it's not all that it's about. Um, so yeah, I don't know where you want to take it from there, Richard,
Well,
but
I mean, I was going to say, first of all, to kick off, I mean, everybody seems to be writing books at the moment. It does seem to be a lot of books. And of course, one of the reasons must be that we've gone through such an exceptional time and people are trying to work out what's true, what's not true, what their own personal experience was. And we've seen actually quite a lot of amazing things that perhaps would not have happened, or ways that we've started thinking if it hadn't been for this terrible calamity that we were all put through. Is that one of the reasons that you felt that you needed to get your story and the World Council for Health story out?
well, I think we are going through a period of immense creativity. I wanted to provide, because there are lots of people waking up and not really knowing what happened during COVID, not really understanding the context, how World Council for Health came about, what it is, what it is actually, and also, the whole story with ivermectin and the vaccines, the jabs, and that, how was that ever, how did that all unravel
Mm.
in or unfold in 2020 and 2021, 2022. Um, I wrote this book to basically for those people just learning about everything, to get to grips of what happened from the non-mainstream narrative, and non-official, and then also for people who had followed events. They would find it quite interesting to know what was going on behind the scenes with BIRD, the British Ivermectin Recommendation Development Group, EBMC Squared, which was the holding company for these initiatives, and World Council for Health, and how, because they knew that we were sort of, it was a sort of a battle zone, a daily battle zone with us being shut down on social media and cancelled, and and our papers being retracted, and all of these things were going on, and we were really struggling to get the information to the public. But also because I'm always being asked for to support legal cases, so that people want these evidence packs. So with this book, there's an associated online evidence pack for legal cases for people wanting to understand what the authorities knew with regard to the vaccines and what they knew, well, from what we submitted, because we did submissions to Parliament and all of that sort of thing, and to the MHRA and other health authorities around the world, and also about ivermectin and how, ivermectin was withheld in order to support the emergency use authorization. Whether or not you think ivermectin works, or whether you think it causes infertility, or whatever it is, there's so much sort of counter narrative on ivermectin. Whether you think a virus exists or whether you think a pandemic ever happened, certainly from my personal perspective, there wasn't a pandemic, but we needed to stop the vaccines. And the evidence certainly was there to support ivermectin for treating whatever it was their symptoms were of COVID, wherever they came from. So we had the evidence to support it, and that should have been sufficient to stop the vaccine rollout, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. And I'm not going to keep doing this when I say vaccines, because we all know that they are gene-based therapies. So, or GMO products. They're not therapies even. They're GMO products, genetic modified organism products, and not safe for use. So I don't want to get you cancelled, and you must be able to just remove anything I say if it can't be
Sure.
aired. But then
Sure.
there's a third element to the book. So the one is to share that information, provide the legal basis. But the third element is to test, to assess the relevance of ancient wisdom to modern challenges. So it's an experiment. And it's quite a novel experiment. It's just when I sat down and I thought, if I'm going to write this book, I don't want to bore everyone to tears just with a sort of chronological sequence of events. So how can I add value and interest? And so I've co-authored the book with a book called the I-Ching. So my book is called Game of Trust, and I've co-authored it with the I-Ching. And the I-Ching is an ancient book, and I'm going to I'll perhaps I can read my foreword and then put everything in context, because it will be what I'm about to say, but without all the ums and ahs.
Right. Yes. Absolutely. Okay. And I'm putting on the screen the cover of the book, which people will be able to purchase. And you haven't got yet an actual solid copy yourself, so we're putting on this one on the screen.
Thanks, I appreciate that. And I'm just going to read from my screen as well.
Sure.
So this is the foreword of my book, Game of Trust. I chose to co-author this book with the English rendering of Richard Wilhelm's German translation of the I-Ching, an ancient oracle and divination tool, as much for the pleasure of my own study as for the education of others. Drawing from Carl Jung's acknowledgement of the I-Ching's influence on his work, I have used this tool, also called the Book of Changes, to enhance my understanding of incidents and events during a 13-month cycle, when I worked collaboratively with many other health advocates around the world to facilitate positive societal change. The story behind Game of Trust is biographical. My role in standing against COVID-19 tyranny, following personal experiences of loss, trauma, and awakening, serves as the backdrop for this writing experiment. From the devastating death of my firstborn whilst I was a young doctor, and a violent home invasion a decade later, to the realization that I was trapped in a system of societal control, my life story reflects a broader struggle for autonomy and truth in a world designed to keep us enslaved. It was in the midst of these challenges that I encountered Chrissy Philp, a Bath-based elder whose theories on the cosmic blueprint of the brain and the I-Ching's relevance in modern life helped ignite a profound shift in perspective. This chance meeting, coupled with the advent of the COVID-19 crisis in early 2020, became the catalyst for my personal and professional transformation. Structured as a series of moves, this book chronicles and interrogates notable experiences in 2021. In embarking on the unusual method for this book, my primary intention was threefold, especially for newcomers to this epic COVID-era tale of good over evil, to give an accessible roadmap of incidents and events leading to the formation of the World Council for Health and the Better Way movement, to provide an evidence pack for legal and lawful actions or general interest, I am often asked for this, and to experience, reflect upon, and assess the relevance and resonance of the I-Ching's wisdom to modern times. Without my co-author's eloquent and unpredictable perspective, Game of Trust would have been a rather dry account of events and a record of documents, from the period when a dark world birthed new life. With my wise co-authors, however, whose voices I have represented in italics throughout, Game of Trust became a novel game of trust in itself. Carl Jung, who penned the foreword to the English rendering of Wilhelm's translation by Carrie Baines in 1949, wrote that, as a person with a sense of responsibility towards science, I am not in the habit of asserting something I cannot prove or at least present as acceptable to reason. Jung had used the I-Ching for many years and had no doubt informed his theory of synchronicity. However, when it came to discussing the I-Ching's influence on his work and perspective, he was understandably apprehensive that people would consider it merely a collection of archaic magic spells. Like Jung, I am well aware of the argument that can be brought against the I-Ching by those unable or afraid to think outside the formal academic or established social frameworks. This is why I conceived this book to be as much a conversation about right and proper conduct with the 5,000-year-old oracle as it is a scientific experiment about the role of ancient wisdom in the modern world. Most scientific experiments produce reproducible findings only if the conditions are tightly controlled and variables are kept to a minimum. In contrast to the prevailing scientific method, the I-Ching method takes into account the tiniest detail. The I-Ching shares its perspective through the investigator's toss of 3 coins 6 times to form a 6-line hexagram, the reading of which is interpreted by the same individual. Thus, synchronicity is the mechanism by which the I-Ching formulates a point of view that may resonate with the psyche and intuition of the inquirer alone. From my inquirer's perspective, the findings throughout the process seem remarkably significant. I postulated that the I-Ching's commentary may indeed resonate with others familiar with events and individuals referenced in this book. Thus, whether its point of view holds general significance will be for the readers to determine. Nevertheless, at the start of this writing project, there was no way of knowing whether my novel approach to studying events and individual perspectives retrospectively would work. A researcher at heart, Game of Trust is thus not only an experiment in the intersection of science and philosophy, but also an experiment in trust. Jung wrote, "As to the thousands of questions, doubts, and criticisms that this singular book stirs up, I cannot answer these. The I-Ching does not offer itself with proofs and results. It does not vaunt itself, nor is it easy to approach. Like a part of nature, it waits until it is discovered. There are many things that we do not yet understand, and that things change is our only certainty. Thus, an ancient book called the Book of Changes seems an ideal tool for these rapidly changing times. In fact, the I-Ching calls itself a book of the future." I hope that Game of Trust will inspire those always seeking proof and results to reconsider the relationship between mankind and the mysterious. Carl Jung held this ancient text in the highest regard, referencing it as the ship that is to carry us over the unknown seas. Through this Game of Trust experiment, readers may wish to contemplate whether the I-Ching has now proven itself to be the ideal guide for crossing the great waters at this critical juncture of our evolution.
Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. And now, what immediately strikes me is at the moment, a lot of people are writing books, having conversations with AI, things like ChatGTP. And so this is really fascinating that you're having a conversation or you're having this co-authorship with an ancient book with a very, very modern problem. Were you surprised as you were doing this process that the answers you were getting were relevant?
Yes, I was. I really didn't. Obviously, researchers always believe their hypothesis. So
Yes.
they want to prove their hypothesis. So researchers are inherently sort of biased. They do want, but it's such a it feels like such a random process, you could say, throwing some coins and then, get that, and I have used the book now for some years as a sort of complementary decision-making tool. But I was delighted that it was so accurate in this retrospective way, as far as I'm concerned. So it will be interesting to see, to hear from readers, whether they also found the readings accurate and whether it resonated with them. Because Carl Jung's theory was that it resonated with the psyche of the individual inquirer. So this would be an evolution in a way of that theory. Although there's hundreds and hundreds of books written about the I-Ching in many, many different languages. It was a book that's been used in many different countries, and including this version of the Richard Wilhelm's version. I think is probably the most highly regarded English version, the Kerry Baines edition. That's sort of from the 40s and 1940s. So yeah, I think it's my sense is that it's highly relevant, and it'll be interesting to hear what other people think. I just wanted to say, so I wrote down, so I had this diary, and I threw the coins more than 110 times during the course of writing the book. And then I would write down the, whatever it was I was asking. I would write down in here, and then I'd draw the hexagram, and then I would convey that into my story, into the writing process. So the co-author's words are taken verbatim, and I've put them in italics, and then in some instances I've added a little interpretation, my interpretation, and other instances I've just left it for people to make their own minds up. But I could give you an example if you like. With
Do. I mean, that would be, it's a fascinating idea.
um, so I've got one which is about, so one of the purposes of writing the book is really to highlight all the many people, um, their actions or inactions or whatever that actually moved things along, that actually led to the formation of World Council for Health, and this movement of awakening that we're all a part of one way or the other. So so one of the stories I could read to you is a segment, and there's 64 moves, and if anyone who works with the I-Ching, they'll know that the I-Ching has got 64 hexagrams. So my book has got 13 chapters and 64 moves, and each move uh, sort of moves the story along a little bit. The chapter titles were chosen by the throw of the coin. So the chapter titles as well in that sequence of the 13 chapters is determined by the throw of the coin. So I want it to be truly collaborative and not,
Yes.
uh, and then, yeah, so I could read something from move 19, which is a move about gathering birds of a feather together. Or I could read the one on move 37, which is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wants to know about ivermectin. So, what would you prefer?
Well, the birds of a feather is quite interesting because that's at that point I think we were talking before we recorded that you were bringing the people of like-mindedness together. So, and you're obviously at this point writing it in the book, and then what do? You're writing something. You think, oh, I think I ought to check with the I-Ching whether this is a good thing to include in the book, or what's their response to this in the book. What sort of questions would you be asking?
So, for example, I'll just read this, and then you will
Mm.
see. I think you will see what I've done. So, I've sort of said, what is your observations about Dr. Andrew Bryant in this situation? So I can share this with you now. So he's one of the birds of a feather. Um, So I'll just start. Another important team member was Dr. Andrew Bryant, the statistician from Newcastle University and the first author on our ivermectin review, whose expertise helped focus the review team. I already knew Bryant to be a man of principle. He's the only man I know who, after a drunken bet with his mates in a pub, set out to lose 20 kilograms and actually did it. With many professional options had he sought them, Bryant has always struck me as someone who didn't really belong in institutionalized academia. He was too intelligent. Whilst he did not voice any disillusionment, it always seemed to me that he considered academia a game of sorts, if not a tad unstimulating, which is why he played golf, his true passion. Having worked with him over several years, mostly on Cochrane systematic reviews, I've often had a sense that he was waiting for life to get more interesting, and with Bird it had. A rather stubborn individual in the most honourable sense, when he knows that he's right, there's no changing his mind. Similarly, when he said he would do something, he stuck to his word. Hence the case with the ivermectin review, which he oversaw with remarkable precision and commitment. However, about Bryant's position at the time, my co-authors observe, the power of the inferior people is growing. The danger grows close to one's person. Already there are clear indications, and rest is disturbed. Moreover, in this dangerous situation, one is as yet without help or friendly advances from above or below. Extreme caution is necessary in this isolation. One must adjust to the time and promptly avoid the danger. Stubborn perseverance in maintaining one's standpoint would lead to downfall. Bryant certainly faced some difficulties at work on account of his association with Bird and the ivermectin review, as well as his refusal to take a COVID vaccine. Despite the looming risks, his sense of responsibility to this novel cause outside of his university scope of work kept him resolute, even as he found himself increasingly isolated in his professional environment. I was pleased to hear that he didn't take the COVID shots, as people working in the hallowed halls of science and academia were under extreme pressure to do so at the time. Ironically, it was not that he had looked at the evidence that had saved him from this particular evil. Rather, it was that health was not exactly high on his list of priorities, having a particular disdain for fresh fruit, vegetables, and doctors, I recall. This, combined with a cautious skepticism, meant that by the time we had had the conversation and I had shared what I knew, he had thankfully not been jabbed. Thereafter, given his oppressive work environment, he kept his opinion on the vaccines to himself, though occasionally had to defend his position among his peers. Clearly not an order follower, Bryant also on occasion had to defend his position working on the ivermectin review. He would hold his ground with affable demeanour and equipoise, always letting the statistics and the science speak for themselves. This is one of the qualities I respected most about him and what reinforced Bird's integrity immensely. I have often felt that he must be one of the few remaining superior men in academia, and my ancient co-authors agree that he is indeed a rare bird. It was a great honour, too, that Dr. Tina Pearce joined Bird and, despite her busy clinical practice, agreed to be part of the steering group for our February 20th Bird recommendation meeting. Dr. Pearce had a clarity of mind that shone brightly along with her beautiful smile. No pushover, Pearce very thoughtfully weighed the evidence presented on ivermectin early in 2021, and once she had deduced that there was a high chance it would help her patients, and then that it worked, she became a powerful advocate for its cause. About Dr. Pearce, my co-authors agree that her approach was cautious and considered. When talk of change has come to one's ears 3 times and has been pondered well, he may believe and acquiesce in it. Then he will meet with belief and will accomplish something. Dr. Pearce's integrity, wisdom, and eloquence on ivermectin matters would become invaluable to our shared mission to help at this time of crisis. These are but a few of the individuals whose collaborative efforts were essential to the development of what would ultimately become a powerful health and sovereignty movement. So do you see how it's sort of woven in?
Yes, and you said in the text it's italicized, so you can have a visual reference to it as well.
Yes, I mean, generally speaking, when the I-Ching is, being quoted, it's much more floral and eloquent than my text. But what was I going to say? I've called it co-authors because the I-Ching is, it's been developed over many years. So it was originally the sort of basis of it was developed 5,000 years or so ago by Fu Shi, some historic character. I don't think people really know how long ago he existed, but then in the sort of 1500s, I think BC, so 3,000 years ago, there was this King Wen, who was imprisoned by this horrible Duke of Chu or something, and was during that time he developed it, and then his son developed it further, and then Confucius took it on, and he did a whole lot of commentary on it. So, and you may be aware of the way, that book, The Way, the Tao Te Ching, that and Lao Tzu. Anyway, that was also sort of I think a spin-off, sort of around about 800 BC or 600 BC, somewhere around about there, which is a sort of highly acclaimed book about how to be, So yeah, I mean, basically it's a book about conduct, how to conduct oneself in a sort of moral way that's aligned with heaven and earth, nature.
Right. And so I presume then that the tossing of the coins and however they land, heads, tails, etc., which on the face of it might, as a lot of people may just say, well, that's just very random, that actually that it isn't random, that they are divine, they fall divinely so that you can look up a specific point in the book.
Yes,
Is that
I do. There is an epilogue which has a conclusion which explains how I see it now, the perspective. And I think it does lend itself to this idea of, the simulation theory, or, that this is a this that we can access our more complete selves through various methods, and and access more information, by if so I'm not being terribly eloquent today, but it's almost like this could be a video game, and we
right?
have a player who actually is far more in control and far more balanced and aware than we are, and that we can access that information through these
Right.
seemingly random processes. But I think what's important to realize is that um, we have this habit of trying to explain everything through the science that we know,
Yes.
and most of the stuff in the world we don't know. There's more uncertainty than there is certainty. So my sense is that we need to start being more open to actually not knowing the answers yet, and expecting to know them in due course, and to be able to have very interesting, stimulating conversations about what all of this means. If there is a book that you can gain insights from.
So it's kind of a bit like a cheat sheet in that video game that you've got. It's as if you've got, actually, if I use this, I can walk through walls that ordinarily in a video game you shouldn't be able to walk through, or you are alerted that there is danger down that corridor, or there's the pot of gold down there, and so it kind of becomes a wisdom.
Yes, it's
But to other players, it seems, how did he know that? But because you've just got a little bit of advanced knowledge, which the choice is still yours to take.
Yes, exactly. So it's all about choice, and about being aware that one's conduct has consequences, be they good ones, or less
Yes.
good ones, or outright bad ones. So it's about that sort of self-mastery, and the recognition that we actually do have a path. There actually is a human path that, if you stick to your human path and you remember who you are as a human being and what's important, like, family and love and taking care of others, and looking after nature and all that, there's there's you're going to have a life of less conflict, most likely. Well, in fact, one doesn't even want to say that. One doesn't know. The point is, we all have our particular path. Maybe it's we have hardships and they wake us up, and um, but um, but there, to me, it's like it's a guide on how to get home safe.
Right.
Uh,
Yes. It's your map out of the maze.
yes. Um,
And you can still make the other choices if you so wish, but you've got this sort of, if you follow the string, you'll get out a little quicker. But if you go the other way, you might come up against a few monsters or whatever.
that's an interesting way of putting it. Yeah.
So let's get back to the book. So I mean, so that's it's an amazing process to do that, and again, I suppose because you're a researcher and you like to experiment or theorize on things, you've used that system which seems to have proved successful in helping you bridge a number of the ideas and concepts in your book. Who's the book aimed at, would you say?
I think it's aimed at everybody. It's aimed at individuals who just want to know what happened, where's the evidence on whether ivermectin works, where's the evidence that showed the vaccines didn't work, and who, why did Jeremy Hunt not do anything, and why did Parliament
Mm.
not do anything, and why was the evidence ignored, and what was Dr. June Rain at the MHRA doing in response to our inquiries. So people who just want the sort of nuts and bolts, but people who want to reflect on that with a bit of fun, really. Not fun, but sort of
Making it more
trying to
light.
yeah trying to but also trying to make sense of it, like why do we all human beings, why do some people take action, why do others not, why is the movement all women, so I also we looked into that, you know and why not all women, but why there's so many middle-aged women in this movement, and where does that come from, uh, you know um, so it's a philosophical text, I would say,
Right.
primarily.
Yes.
But it's philosophy and science together. And it's trying to show that, it's like science and wisdom are complementary, just like yin and yang, and, it's not binary code. It's complementary, so and it's organic, and we need to spend a bit more time with wisdom rather than science at this point. We seem to have
I
found
mean
out.
that's a very interesting point, because all the way through the pandemic we were trust the science. We were told, the balance shifted down to one way, that we had to trust the science, which we do also with the nonsense about man-made climate change. There's certain agendas that seem to be being pushed under the umbrella that science proves that this is the case, and any other claim, like ancient wisdom or common sense, says no, no, that has no place here, because science says. Whether that's real science or pseudoscience is another question, and we had that pushed down our throats. Did you find then, as you were building your birds of a feather and the World Council for Health, and trying, and must have been in an agonized position when you know that this is a complete false thing, and you're trying to get that message out. Did you? I've lost my question now. Did you know that? What was I trying to say? That oh yeah, did you know that it would be difficult to fight science with more science?
Yes, well, we needed the science as a foundation stone, so we needed to prove on that basic level to reach the scientists. But we knew, in terms of connecting with people, we needed to be more creative. And our role certainly is, for World Council of Health, is we are messengers. We really are about getting the messages to people. We're not about dictating anything about health and sovereignty. It's really about bringing the information forward from our grassroots partners, and dispersing it out again, and also dispersing out our councils. So it's about and the brand. It's for all intents and purposes a free franchise. If you align with the Better Way principles, which are really simple 7 principles. About acting, in honor and doing no harm, and being part of nature, and being sovereign, and having meaning in life, and uh, uh, working together, and valuing different perspectives, and using technology with discernment, and not tolerating the violation of inalienable rights and freedoms. If you like those, well then, do print yourself a t-shirt, and you know get a badge, and start working on self-mastery, because it all comes down to the individual at the end of the day,
Mm.
to create the new. It starts with the individual. We're all the building blocks of the better world. It's not beginning with government or politicians.
When you were first creating the World Council for Health, did you have problems with people looking at you and comparing you, or being confused with the the other nefarious organization, the World Health Organization? Because you've got world in both of those things, and it gives the idea of a globalist agenda. Did you have that sort of confusion with people?
Well, of course, there was a bunch of people who just kind of get out of here. Who are these people? And, you can't just suddenly go and make a new World Health Organization. But, everything starts small, and we've been working very organically. So we didn't intend to be another World Health Organization. And certainly there's no need for these monolithic institutions that just dictate stuff to everybody. So we
Sure.
didn't want to be another World Health Organization. But when we did a survey early in 2022 and we said, okay, so we've put out the cease and desist notice. So we were the first organization to say the COVID jabs must be stopped, and anyone who's manufacturing, disseminating, etc., could be held liable if they don't stop doing it now. And that was the 29th of November 2021. So we've done that. We've launched with a COVID care at-home treat guide, boost your immune systems, and all that stuff. So, and then we said to our supporters, well, what do you want us to do next? And they said, oh, can you help with vaccine injury, and can you be the new World Health Organization? So we really had to scratch our heads and say, well, what does a new World Health Organization look like that actually serves the people?
Mm.
Um, and we realized, well, it's health and sovereignty. It's not just health. You can't take the one away from the other. It's certainly not health security. And
Mm.
it's about basically giving the power back to the people. Really teaching everybody again, we can actually look after ourselves, and we need to get to the root cause of disease rather than just taking pills and cutting things out. Um, and 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 so, we then developed this model whereby we started with our core World Council for Health. And we thought, well, now we have to break it down to country councils and then break it down to city councils or community councils. So we actually have this, so in the US, we have two state councils, and we will soon have a WCH London, which will be our first city council.
Wow.
And so sorry, dropped out. So, is that okay? Am I
Yeah, yeah, I can still hear you.
good? Good. So, it's all about disseminating the power and creating new leaders. So, empowering all these new leaders to come up from the grassroots. And there are
Yes.
amazing people, who have been doing amazing things at the grassroots, as you know. And so it's really about inviting them in and helping them get a platform so that they can rally things in their areas.
So your book reflecting those earlier times, when you look now, you must be immensely proud at what you have achieved, but there's probably holes of things that you would like to have achieved that have yet to happen.
Yes, I mean, it's hard to believe. I certainly didn't want to set up a new World Health Organization. I was, I was hoping somebody else would do it. Around about.
Yes, that's it. But they never materialize, do they?
No, we sort of snowballed it, but it was not something that, I took on lightly. I did think, oh, this is going to be a lot of work. It's going to take a long time, and it's going to be difficult. But
And there's no
but
money.
yeah, and the money is the difficult thing, the most
Right.
difficult thing. But what we do is, instead of having a lot of money, we have a people bank, and the people, we have so many wonderful people who are aligned with the mission, and they support with their time wherever they are, whatever they're
Yes.
doing. If you're doing great things in your community, then you're part of, the movement really to just co-create a better world now.
And
Um,
do you think then if we hadn't had this pandemic and we hadn't had this global phenomenon and the vaccine and things, that the World Council for Health and the work that you're doing and the reach that you now have would not have really happened?
no, nothing, none of it would have happened. This wasn't something I wanted to do at all. I
No.
was,
But I
um,
suppose what I'm saying is that that out of crisis, I mean, a global crisis, it hadn't it's gone down and it was all hell in a handcart. Actually, out of that, a phoenix has risen
well,
because
that's exactly.
it's making people think of different ways of dealing with health and well-being and those sort of issues, rather than just going to the GP and having little white pills.
Yeah, it's completely has everything is being there's really great things being birthed, and you almost have to have that very everything gets born in the dark, everything starts in all wonderful great things germinate in the dark. And so in the depths of this really dark time we've been in, there's been amazing birth of new life. We still have huge challenges ahead, as we know, but it is interesting that nothing would have necessarily shifted if we hadn't been plunged into this real, relative nightmare over the last few years. And what is interesting in the book also, when I did make inquiries about situations which I would have thought, the I-Ching might have been rather sort of strict and stern, certain actions, even individuals, at the WHO, for example, Tedros and so on, there was a suggestion, there's redemption for everybody. There's a suggestion that everybody has a role. They've been playing a role in some way. And, we all seem to be in this together. It's like, some theatre.
Yes, yes, there's certainly a lot of theatre around
Yes.
at the moment. You have an event coming up where you're going to be launching this book so that people can actually buy it. I mean, they can't buy it at the moment because it's not yet available. But after, I'm just trying to remember when it was. It's the
The
something of
6th. It's the 6th
sixth
of June. In actual
sixth of
fact,
June.
people can pre-order a signed copy.
Pre-order.
Yes, you can pre-order a signed copy on the World Council for Health website in the shop. But also, it would be lovely if everybody who can make it to it's near Laycock, Griffin Estate on the 6th of June. It's lovely, Richard, that you're going to be there. Hopefully, we'll have some sunny weather like we've been having.
I've ordered it. I've ordered it. It's like, look, come on. I'm getting a bit of a tan going here, so I want to keep it on. So yeah, we'll have some sunshine.
Yeah, but it's going to be a fun event because A, you're going to be there. B, it's 5:30 on a Friday. We'll go on till probably 8:30 or even 9, and it'll be a chat with us, and there'll be some, drinks and canapes or something, and some conversations. So it'll be a really nice opportunity to chat with people, have some interesting conversations, and hear a bit more about the book. And I'll find some interesting passages to read, and we can have a chat about the what it all means.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that would be interesting. I mean, and of course, people can ask the questions about the I Ching and that process. Never mind your AI. Let's go back to ancient wisdom, which is really good. And I'll put in the description the tickets. Yes, sorry.
I just remembered actually a very key point is that Leibniz, the guy who developed binary code in the 1700s, the mathematician, he knew about the I Ching, and he used because he showed that it almost seemed to inspire him to do so. Binary code underpins computer code, so the I Ching somehow is connected to computer code. So it's older, it's much older, it's code, it's much older than computer code. And obviously, computer code is just a derivative. Binary code is a derivative of that because it's like yes, no,
Mm.
black, white. It sees it, open,
Ones
closed.
and
Whereas
zeros.
I Ching, when you look at the yin yang symbol, it's complementary. So it's not just black and white. You can have, it's infinite because you can have an infinite amount of black and a teeny bit of white, or an infinite amount of, so it's constant flux. So it's constant change. So it's far more, you could say, far more intricate in its development based on nature than binary code, which is computer code.
Wow, there you go. You see, I didn't know I was going to be having a conversation about the I Ching when we started this. So it's fascinating, and it'd be interesting in the comments if other people use the I Ching and how they find their wisdom and guidance. As well. So you've opened up a sort of an entry from science into sort of ancient knowledge, which would be fascinating. I'll put all the links as normal into the description so people can come along on the 6th of June, which is just a month away now, isn't it? It's
Yes.
absolutely amazing. And looking forward to seeing a copy of the book and of course, pre-ordering so that you can get it signed. So you'll be doing a lot of signing, I'm absolutely sure, which is great. So Tess, thank you so much for telling us about your book and the novel where it was co-authored, but also it's a period that a lot of people are, we've had 5 years of this now, and a lot of people are remembering it. They want to sort of put it aside, but we're not quite there to put it aside. But we have got so much wisdom from all those wonderful people that you work with, people that I talk to. And as you say, it is a bit like a phoenix coming out. We've got a brilliant and bright future ahead of us, I think. But we just got to get through the last bit of turbulence. Would you say
And
that
I
was
think
true?
um, um, you'll have to read the ending of the book.
Oh, right. We'll leave that then.
But
Who did
but
it? The butler did it.
but what I would like to say is just a reminder to everybody, one thing is certain is the whole computer thing is uncertain, and so books are more important. Having hard copies of books is more important than ever. So do build your libraries, because that's what we're going to be doing by the wood fires, in the future. And yeah,
Absolutely.
having hard copies is really important. Don't keep everything online.
And just before we go, one thing I forgot to ask you. When we look at the cover, let me say that we see you with your hand up, and there's a heart on your hand. And I meant to ask you about that before. So just before we finish, just you've got it on your hand now, I believe.
Yes, I have. Yes.
There we go.
It's so this is our symbol of sovereignty, and I know and sort of sovereignty and unity and about taking control and taking responsibility for oneself. It's sort of it's part of our logo, but we've got the apple and the hand and the heart. But it's been with us for some time now, and we've been using these as a little device really because it's a universal symbol, the hand heart, or the heart anyway, and everybody understands it immediately. And it's also a really simple way of just making other people feel better, be they in the traffic, and they let you in kindly, and you just say thanks very much, and you show your hand heart, and often people can also be grumpy, and you say sorry, and you do that, and they sort of melt. So it's a way of reaching people in these some very gloomy days we have had in recent months. And the young people love it. The old people, this was made by elderly people in one of the nursing homes near here, so they're handmade, and they carry, I feel, a really good energy.
Oh, brilliant! Can people buy them from your website?
They have to make them.
They make them.
There's a recipe on the website. You can
Right.
make your
Well, it's
own.
better to make your own anyway.
You get 20 out of an A4. So you get, for a pound or something, you can get 20. I use the 3 millimeter thick felt, and you can make 20 and then just take them to the children at school, or get the children to make them at school in the classroom. And there's so many different things, and certainly, there's lots of elderly people in nursing homes or neighbors who are just too happy to, get busy doing something, and they're great
Yes.
for community fetes and fairs and that sort of thing. And I mean, I like wearing it just because it just reminds me, when I wake up in the morning, it cheers me up. Okay, so, I'm doing my best to be sovereign. What am I going to do today that's going to, push me a little bit out of my comfort zone? And yeah, it's a cheerful reminder of the journey
Fantastic.
we're on. Yeah.
Wonderful. So there we are. Heart in your hand, in one hand, the I-Ching in the other hand, and you're heading forward for success. I wish you every success with the book. I'm looking forward to the book launch in June. All the links will be in the description, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. And Dr. Tess Lawrie, thank you for coming on and being my guest. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, Richard.
I will be back, of course, with more monologues and more wonderful guests in the future. So in the meantime, take care, look after yourself, and if the sun is shining, do get out in it. After all, we may not have it for long.